All right. Welcome back or welcome. Episode 10 of Harrison Talks Pod. If this is your first time joining me, my name is Harrison and this is my podcast. Every week we come on to talk about NBA basketball as well as gaming, traveling, or whatever else I'm doing for that week. I hope that all of you have a nice Christmas or a nice holiday, whatever you are celebrating, if you are celebrating. We don't celebrate too much in my family. And that's all I'll say about that because we have a busy day and let's jump right in. Later on, second part of this episode, my friend Sean. Sean is another co-host or contributor to the Nintendo Therapy podcast. He comes on to join and um, talk with me about some difficult games on the Nintendo Switch, and we had a great, fun gaming conversation that I think you'll enjoy. But first, we have to do some NBA talk. The first thing that I want to talk about is more narrative. And it might be the most popular reactionary YouTuber NBA topic right now, and that is about the NBA viewership or the viewership problem, perhaps. I'm going to try my best. I took my notes and going to try my best to not talk in circles too much, but I wanted to share with you some of my initial feelings and thoughts as well as where I see it being an overreaction and where I think it's valid and what they could possibly do to change it. I'll try to do that at the end. I think that this season has had lots of quality basketball, similar to last season. Last season, we were on pace to see well, we did see a very historic season, I guess we'll say overall, offensively. Um, we saw some of the highest rated offensive teams. If you look at the top 20 in history, we saw quite a few that happened just in this past season. Now, that might not be good for the product or the quality, but overall, it is historic and we see lots of great basketball players now, probably more high quality basketball players now than we ever have, even with the amount of injuries that we have. And that's definitely a topic that we're going to touch on. If anything, and this is just my own viewing experience, um, it can feel recycled sometimes. I will admit that. Of course, I try to when I watch League Pass, I just try to watch whatever seems the most interesting or seems like the best game of that time. And I try to not flip around too much so that instead of trying to watch 10 games and not watching any, at least I'm watching a few and a few of some others maybe. It does feel recycled sometimes. The fact that, I do still watch a lot of LeBron. LeBron is always on teams that could be playoff teams or teams that have a fun narrative around them. And it's LeBron. LeBron plays with other superstars and is doing something that we're never going to see. So, of course, it's something that I want to watch because at any moment it could be over. At the end of any season, or they even a lot of people speculated when he took time off recently for personal reasons, which is always a concern for me when I hear that from any player, personal reasons. Um, that like what if it's now, like what if he's just done now, but I didn't buy into that too much. But you're 22. Steph Curry, year 16, is that right? Year 16. And Warriors have been struggling a good bit offensively. Yeah, I think more offensively right now. Not sure where they're really going to go. And Steph Curry also is not out of the blame on this either. I mean, 2 games ago had perhaps his worst offensive night of his entire career. Didn't write down the numbers for that one. But anyways, if I wanted to validate any initial feelings, that's how I feel when I watch it. I think that I'm usually watching lots of high quality basketball. It does get frustrating sometimes with the amount of injuries that we've had so far this season, and that's kind of been the same post COVID. I can't tell you if this season in particular is worse than last season or 2 seasons ago, but this is natural. So while I don't have a perfect solution on how you fix the conditioning or the injury issue, we all know this comes with playing at a faster pace, playing more athletically, and some of it's just bad luck. Sometimes you tear an ACL or you tear an Achilles, you break your foot. These are all examples from this season. And it can be non-contact, and it can be something that is out of a trainer's or a player's control. So I get that part. Some people that are being reactionary to this, and this can be more anecdotal. This is me watching YouTube videos or seeing the discourse and Twitter comments or whatever it might be. I think some people have given up on the league, and I think when it comes to that, that's fine. I mean, like, for example, if you don't care about the NBA Cup, I don't really get that all the time because it plays into the regular season. But at the same time, like if you ask me, do I care about the NFL in September? I'd say it's cool. Like NBA, like anytime there's NFL football, that's awesome. Like good or bad, you know. I'll be watching it Christmas Day alongside watching NBA basketball. But do I really care about early season football? No, not really, not really. I'm more engaged now than I would be like in the very beginning, where it's like great, there's something on TV and like it's NFL football. That's always good. It's like pizza. It's always good, right? Even if it's bad. So, um, I get that. But I think at the same time, if you're not watching any NBA basketball, I feel like those feelings can be less valid because you can say, well, all they do is flap or all they do is shoot threes. But then again, how would you know? Because you're not watching, and I could point to plenty of examples where this player or this team doesn't just shoot threes. I mean, it's the same thing with having still having a discourse about Steph Curry only being a three-point shooter, where for for over 10 years now we can point to examples of that just not being true, as well as him having seasons where he's led his team in interior scoring. Anyways, yes, this is becoming kind of a vent at this point. I think we should kind of just leave those people. If you don't want to watch basketball, that's perfectly fine. Because I think another point that I want to get to is, when we look at viewership ratings or TV ratings, like how much of that is valid? Because of course, um, after this year, I think it is the TV deal. I think is 11 years, $77 billion. So of course, we're talking about money. Um, it's very important, but to be reactionary would be to only look at um, TV viewership and say that this league is failing. And not only to only look at NBA TV viewership, but not compare it to college basketball, which is down men and women's. I read that women's college basketball is down 38%. Caitlin Clark effect, um, yeah, I guess. Uh, NHL is down. NFL is up, but they have seasons where they are down. So at the same time, Nielsen, let me pull it up here. Nielsen said in November, November streaming was 42%, estimated 42% of overall programming viewership. So I'm kind of torn between, yes, money in the end is the most important to this company. Of course, it's a company. But at the same time, I don't think we can just look at viewership and look at one company's viewership and look at the viewership of the beginning of this season and just say that it's just failed. Where it has decreased post COVID, where there are other issues that we have already brought up, I think I agree with Adam Silver when he says that the interest is there. The interest has not gone away. The people who are interested in the NBA are, most of them are just as engaged as ever, and um, as a worldwide product is just growing and growing and growing. Okay, let me transition there because the product and League Pass is something that I've been meaning to talk about for since this podcast started, I'm sure. Uh, I have League Pass International. I live in Thailand. It's a sunny Monday afternoon in Thailand right now. Um, I've had it for 4 years. It's been a different price every year for me. Um, it's never been expensive. And last year it was pretty much free. I think I got it free with like NBA 2K or free trial, however I got it. But it was next to nothing for what I paid for it last year. Uh, for international, I get no blackouts. The only blackouts I get are special events. Um, the only one I can think about is I don't get like the NBA crunch time, like the NFL Red Zone, whip around, programming. I wish I did. That would be cool. But for some reason, I might need just to email them and say, "Hey, I'm overseas. Why don't I get this? I get everything else." But I do get why. Yeah, if I was living in a hometown with my hometown team and I got blackouts on League Pass, um, why that would immediately just be frustrating and immediately turn me away from that sort of product. I guess I would consider myself lucky, but if anything, I've always felt like I wish that even if it was a little bit more expensive, that the product would be a little bit better. I mean, for example, last year, um, I could never ever get streaming correct on my Google TV or whatever we call it, Google Home, Fire Stick, whatever it is. I can never get it to work correctly. This year I can, but it's always better on my laptop, and the app is definitely finicky. And the League Pass app on the phone is even more finicky sometimes, in my opinion. So I wish I wish that like while it can be like next to nothing in price, I wish I could pay a little bit more to have a premium product that just works all of the time. Just my opinion. Uh, at the same time, that's my only option living abroad. If League Pass does not work for me living abroad, it's really just Stream East or Crack Streams or whatever else I can use at the time. Luckily, I haven't had to do that at all this year. Um, but it's just unfortunate that, okay, you do get all the games, but it's only this one thing that works, and hopefully it works all the time. So I would make that better. I would make NBA League Pass more of a more just better, more of a premium service, not premium in price necessarily, but I wish it could be different. I know there are TV deals that require having blackouts, but maybe more a better product will encourage people like me who are already engaged and are, League Pass subscribers. So what should the NBA do? I don't know if I've touched on all my points, but I'm ready to move on. What should the NBA do? I think the NBA Cup has been a great success. I get that some people don't get it yet, but it plays into the regular season. There is, I guess, technically, there could be two games that don't count for a team, but there is money involved, there's incentives, and it does um, give players a little bit of a break quarter into the season, or we can say halfway between the beginning of the season and All-Star break, which is something that I had underestimated, I think, when I first learned about the NBA Cup, when we all first learned about it 2 years ago. So overall net positive. It will never be an NBA championship. That's fine. So keep doing it. Yeah, keep doing it. Keep marketing it. It will get better over time as people do catch on. Consider 72 game season. And this is not my original idea. I think this is like a Bill Simmons idea. Um, uh, intercon interconference, separate conferences. If East plays West, you play two games. In your conference, you play three games each. You remove all back to backs, and you try to do baseball series as much as possible. So it reduces travel, no back to back games, which players don't like, which do, do consumers like? Are there any consumers that actually like having back to back games? I mean, it's something to watch, but we're constantly admitting that the quality is not as good. And 72 games, it's only 10 games less, and it does make sense to the consumer, where it's, okay, three games if it's the same conference, two games if it's a different conference. Do we need one home, one away game if it's a different conference? They can decide that to, again, reduce traveling. That helps conditioning. Provide more resources to conditioning as well. Don't have a full answer on that, but continue researching and seeing how um, across the league, how they can become more, I guess I'll say horizontally aligned with their conditioning. Find what works, because we've acknowledged the fact that if we want it to be more athletic, if we want it to be more, if we want it to be faster, that it has to, that injuries are going to happen. It has to be addressed. Uh, Make games shorter, perhaps? I don't know if we can ever get rid of halftime, but man, I wish we could. But for me personally, I'll just add on that, have games start on time. How about that? Have it start on time and have it end earlier, and perhaps we can get more young people to watch these games. Or older people like me, I don't know. I'm not really too sure. Do we fix the 3-point issue? I don't know. That this is probably the last part I'm not really too sure about. Could we make the court wider? Yes. Could we expand a 3-point? Yes. At the same time, and this will lead into, I guess, my closing point here. Um, is 3-point shooting as big an issue as people make it out to be. I know that I have my issues with it sometimes, especially when the efficiency is horrible and we're not adjusting. We've been watching quite a few of these games recently, actually. But if we're looking at younger people, I mean, when I was young, it was dunking. It was Jordan, it was Kobe, it was Tracy McGrady, Vince Carter. Um, and then it was like the NBA street ball, like and one mixtape, all of that stuff. But if you look at kids today, it's 3-point shooting. I know we might hate it. I know it might not promote always the best way to play these games, but we can teach children, we can teach young people how to play basketball the quote unquote correct way. But why should we shy away from it if it's something that promotes the league overall? And we live in an analytical, statistical world where 3 points is worth a lot more than 2 points when you factor in all of the other percentages. So it is what it is. Unless you make it a straight line and you make a 3-point shot that is 35 feet out, I really don't know at this point. I don't know if you fix it. I don't know if you try to fix it. I don't know if it's as big of a problem as maybe older people make it out to be, because it does. I mean, Steph Curry, most popular, most influential player among young people by far. If we're not including like soccer, football, things like that. So I say to old fans that gave up years ago, let them go. You know, they'll have their opinions on it, but the point is they left years ago. Um, if you left because the game changed too much and you love the 90s, let them go. If you left the NBA because you were actually a fan of a player, not of basketball or the NBA, then that's fine. Just let them leave. Um, and NBA, market your players a little bit better, I guess. Uh, put put some of these young upcoming players on national TV more. Put Anthony Edwards on all the late night shows. It won't be for people like me, but it'll certainly be for the masses, which are the people that you need to promote to, because I'm going to be watching it regardless. All right. All right. That's enough. Let's do a few more minutes of two other teams, and I'm not gonna spend too much time on this. Pacers have won four straight, and I want to talk about them because I wanted to fill in some gaps and talk about some teams that I haven't covered too much this year. They've had a rough start to the season. Tyrese Halliburton has had a rough start to his season. Been playing streaky, but I would say this past month has been playing much better. Although I think a lot of people aren't engaged and paying attention to uh, the improved play. They have won four straight, five of their last six. They are now 14 and 15, which is eighth in the East. They are one of the fastest paced teams according to NBA.com. Before this 6 game streak, they had four straight losses, and before that, they had three straight wins. So, yes, very streaky start, but 14 and 15 is good enough for middle of the road right now in the East. Um, Good enough for a play-in spot. Halliburton, yes, has been much better this past month. Overall, scoring and assist numbers have been down, but hey, he led the league in assists last season. Siakam has had one of his best efficiency years, while he's scoring 20.1 points per game, which isn't at the 24.1 when he was an All Star. I do believe, especially with this new All Star format, if the Pacers can remain a playoff play-in team, that Siakam will get another All-Star spot this season. And I'd love to see it. I'd love to see that. Mathurin has been very consistent this year. So if you're a Pacers fan, you're excited to see that. He has started 23 of the 28 games that he's played. Career high points per game at 17.2. Um, Around the career average in attempts, he is 37% from three on 4 attempts. Consistency is key right now and the most important. I would love to see if he can get up to a 20-point per game season. For sure has been one of my favorite young players to watch in the league. Has had great energy. Has been playing way more consistently compared to last year. TJ McConnell has played off the bench in all 27 games he's played. Career high points per game at 11.2. Will for sure be a sixth man of the year candidate again this year. Was seventh in voting last season. We top in career high 10.8 points per game. There has been lots of bench productivity uh, this season, and that's along with losing James Wiseman to Achilles in the first game and Isaiah Jackson in the sixth game to an Achilles. So losing all their front court depth, I think it could be a lot worse than it has been. I think it could be a lot worse. They could be straight up in that Cooper Flag lottery, which it might still be a possibility, but all right. They waived Moses Brown last week, and Rick Carlisle surprisingly made comments saying that December 15th is coming up fast, meaning that players signed in the offseason will be eligible to be traded. I for sure think that the Pacers will do something on one side or the other to make some sort of move. Um, will they trade Miles Turner? Miles Turner will certainly be in trade rumors like he is every year because of lots of teams needing a front court player. Would they trade Miles Turner and and at the same time address their front court depth? Or would they keep Miles Turner and address their front court depth? Or do we go full tank mode after February? I'm not really too sure at this point. Not really too sure. So, more of them later. Last one I want to talk about. I'll say 2 days ago now. On Saturday night, I watched the end of the Magic Heat game. And I originally turned it off because when I turned it off, it was the third quarter and they were down 25 points. And then I had to turn it back on at the end when I found out that the Magic were about to come back. And in the end, they held the Heat to 8 points, outscored the Heat 37-8 in the fourth quarter. A 25-point comeback ties a Magic franchise record for biggest comeback. Wendell Carter Jr. was ejected in the second quarter. Mo Wagner, unfortunately, went out in the first quarter due to injury. We now know it's a torn ACL. So, never going to see the Magic at a full 100%. Let's cycle back to that, actually. Um, uh, Actually, let's do it now. I changed my mind. Let's do it now. So, Franz Wagner and Mo Wagner are now out. Paul Banchero will hopefully be back this month. He should be back maybe this week. Jalen Suggs is questionable for next game. While it's amazing to see what they have done this season, they are 18-12. They are fourth in the East. They are third in defense, 25th in offense, eighth in net rating. It's amazing to see what they have accomplished without their star player and with so many injuries to start this year. Could be way, way worse. And it's just unfortunate that now we know we'll not see them technically at 100%. With Mo Wagner being out for the season, Paul Banchero coming back, um, more winning might be in the future for them. But it was a great game to watch. It's been on my mind since I watched it on Saturday. Cole Anthony scored 35 points, which is a season high by a lot. Next highest was 16 points. He's had a couple of no scoring games so far this year. I'm sure it's been tough for him. I mean, 5 years with this franchise, has had a tough start to this year, has had so many injuries on his team. He was clearly emotional in the interview post game. So, quite something to watch. I've definitely become a lot more of a Magic fan this season, seeing the hometown crowd um, come around them even more. Just one of the many, I guess I'll say, young, fun teams to watch. Okay, so let's transition here. We're going back now and going to be joined by my friend Shawn to talk about some Switch games. All right, and we are back, and I say we are back, but we're recording this out of order. Yeah, we're going back a couple of days. This is a Friday morning for me, Thursday evening back home in America, and I am joined by my good friend Shawn. Shawn, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on the bonus podcast you do in the shadows.
Yeah, Harrison Talks Pod. We'll call it Bonus Pod. Shawn says it's Bonus Pod because Shawn and I contribute, co-host, or whatever you call it on the Nintendo Therapy podcast. And that's another weekly podcast we do talking about Nintendo games, talking about Nintendo Therapy, whatever that might be. I invited Shawn on today. Of course, had to get him on here, and I wanted to talk to Shawn today about Switch games, but more specifically, difficult games that we enjoy on Switch. And the reason
Is
is
something wrong with us?
that's the reason why. Now
Yeah,
I'm kind of an enjoyer of brutal games, but not as much as some people. Shawn, you might be a little bit more. Um,
yeah. I feel like in my old gamer age, it's something I've gotten more into.
yeah. And you're a little bit older than me too, so um, you kind of grew up when games were a little bit
We're hard.
not forgiving, no save
Yeah,
states, um, all the things. So today is Switch focused. Let me start with this. Shawn, we made a list together. I'm sure you have other ones you can add. Do you have a favorite quote unquote difficult game on Nintendo Switch?
it's probably Darkest Dungeon, which I have yet to beat still. And that game almost perfectly captures playing a tabletop RPG. Like, I love that aspect of it because your party has so much personality and it's like, oh, roll to attack that thing. And it's like, no, you're going to have a panic attack and eat all our food. Great. Awesome. So I don't know. I've really enjoyed that game a lot. I do have the sequel. Haven't touched it yet. I'm notorious for buying stuff and it sits in the backlog. But yeah, that probably is my favorite.
I was not expecting that. Okay. So Darkest Dungeon is a tabletop RPG. Is it turn based or is
Yeah,
it?
it's turn-based roguelite. It's got a lot of mechanics going, but the original game's big thing was just the party doesn't react to things the way it's not like, oh, we're gonna charge in there, and it's like, well, the guy in the front's a jerk. We don't like him, so I'm not gonna attack because I don't like him. And then the guy in the back's like, well, I'm kind of afraid, so I think I'm just gonna stand here. So I don't know. I love the unpredictability of it. but because of that, I've never beaten it because it's fairly challenging. So
Can you rank it among like difficulty? Like it like would it be like mid tier difficulty or is it like really difficult or
I feel like it's really difficult, but it it's because it's so much based on random number generating.
yeah.
So, I mean, you can kinda have a strategy going in, but the dungeons are all random, and so, yeah. One day I'll complete it.
What makes you like that kind of game? To me, it sounds more realistic than like if you're playing like a Pokemon game and it's just like you just take turns battling, even if you have like a Moltres versus a Rattata or something. But what makes you like those kind of games?
I think the main reason I kinda get drawn to difficult games is you get that real sense of accomplishment when you do something in it, and I it's there's nothing wrong with games being easy, and obviously Nintendo, like, a lot of their stuff's geared at younger gamers, but I don't know, I'm at that point now where it's like, "Alright, I paid 25 bucks for this thing. Let me see how much gameplay I can get out of it." And, that's kinda how I get into the Souls series too is, you fall into those routines of, "Alright, it's been 3 days, I'm finally gonna beat this boss." So you get this awesome, like, release when you finally do it, and then you talk to other people and they're like, "Oh my god, did he do this?" And so there's a lot of cool community, I guess, with difficult games.
There is a cool community with that. Do you have to like is it hard to put those games down sometimes? Like, if you can't, like, if you do over and over, you're backtracking, you're going back, you're doing it again, you can't win. Is it hard to finally say like, okay, it's been too long, I gotta go do something else? Um,
No, I've gotten to a point now where I know if I'm hitting a wall and it's like, "Okay, you just need to walk away. We'll come back to this at some point." I think when I started playing games like that, it was a, "No, I gotta keep going and going," and that kinda becomes maddening. So I'm like, "You know what? This is not a healthy way to play games." So now I'm at the point where I'm like, "Alright, I don't know what I'm doing." Sometimes, I'll look up and see what other people like, "Oh, this is a strategy, blah, 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 blah," but usually it's just, "Alright, this is where you gotten. When we sit back down, maybe we'll get a little further," and I'm cool with that.
I'm getting better at it. Sometimes I'm stubborn though. Like, sometimes I'm like, I'm not, I'm not gonna do anything else in this game until I do this one thing that I gotta accomplish. But sometimes I feel like when I was playing through Hollow Knight, which might be my favorite game on this list. Actually, I haven't picked one. Um, that like I had to like put it down sometimes and then come back later. And for some reason, when I come back later, it's easier. Maybe I'm just like my mind's refreshed, or I'm just
Yeah.
relaxed, or whatever conditions I was going through, like the frustration of it all. Sometimes I need like that, like just playing with the back burner of like just put it down, come back to it later. Um, but yeah, Hollow Knight, I would say, is like mid tier difficulty. Um, I'm very happy to see that it's on so many people's lists on Reddit of like their most like difficult Switch game. How about that? Do you have a most difficult Switch game that you own?
It's probably Cuphead, honestly. Like, I there's not many games that are difficult on that level, and I know you get it on the list, but one of the things I like about that game is it has a very '90s feel to me with the difficulty where games then certain stuff everyone ran into. So when I talk to people about Cuphead, the boss difficulty is consistent, whereas a Souls game, everybody's like, "Oh, so and so gave you trouble. Oh, I did this," and then you're like, oh well, I beat this guy first try. I'm like, wait, how did you beat this guy first try? But Cuphead, between having to, you know, you're platforming, you get stuff flying all around the screen, and then you get to learn all the moves of the boss. So all of those things together, there's so much going on that you're almost multitasking while you're playing one game. And I like that people are like, oh well, the robot is the hardest of the airplane bosses. Uh, the King Dice is harder than the devil. Like those are things that people consistently say. Uh, the DLC, I think, for the most part, is considered, insanely difficult across the board. So those are the things I think are really cool about that game. And then I love the art style, like the fact that he did that old school cartoon thing. And that was kind of with Switch where I started to see that Nintendo was making partnerships with other companies. Because when Cuphead was announced, it was just Xbox. And I'm like, well, I'm not getting an Xbox just to play that one game that looks cool. And then I think it might have come to Switch before it went to other stuff. So I was like, oh, all right, you guys are going to try to develop relationships so things aren't just, well, you have to have our console or you can't play it. So I really enjoy that game. I somehow beat it the second time I had COVID. That was like my way to relax for whatever reason.
Have you done the hard difficulty?
I have not done the hard difficulty, and I do want to try to beat it in co-op, which I'm sure is fairly challenging. So
Yeah, I'm not sure if in co-op. I think it's more challenging in co-op the bosses. Like they have more health, perhaps.
yeah, I think they add more health, and I could imagine trying to keep track of two characters on one screen is going to be tricky. But I want to give it a go because I'm a big, I love co-op games. And that's kind of a weird spot with difficult games. So some of them do it well, some of them don't. So I kind of want to see where Cuphead falls in that spectrum of, all right, we're gonna try and beat this game at the same time.
Yeah, I find like co-op, especially the platforming, to be very, very difficult. And it does add in the extra element of that you can save your buddy, which was usually me that was dying if I was doing co-op. Uh, you can like save them, but then like if your buddy keeps dying, the ghost gets faster and faster
Oh,
as it goes up. Uh, so it adds extra like challenge to it, and yeah, if you have someone like me who's just probably gonna be lacking, it can be super annoying. Like, um, and again, I think it is a bit more. The bosses are a little bit more difficult. So yeah, I didn't realize there was a difficult mode until I finished it, and then I was like, I'm good. I'm good
I
there.
don't know if I'm at like the co-op thing. I definitely want to do the more difficult mode. I'm like, I really enjoyed it, but I don't know because that's a really stressful game. Like I would say that game's more stressful than a Souls game on a lot of, because in a Souls game it's like, well, you're fighting this one boss. Okay. Cuphead is, well, you're fighting this one boss. It has 17 phases. There's all this other stuff going around, plus the levels moving. Good luck. So,
I don't think I've ever like said more swear words playing a game. I don't say it when I record or anything, but like I don't think I've ever cussed more playing a game. Just it's so frustrating, and it is like it is so fast. Like you can replay and replay so much that I think the first night we got it, we played until like 3 a.m. Because it's so much.
oh
It,
yeah,
it's
like,
such it's such like a one more time kind of
yeah,
game.
oh yeah, yeah. Especially when you get a little further in the level, or you get to the next phase of the boss, and you're like, no, I got it this next time.
Yeah. So yeah, massive success on that game. I mean, there's a mini documentary on it of the development of it. Just seeing where it started and where it ended, And it was when we did our list on Nintendo Therapy of of games that could be Nintendo titles or should be. I forget what it exactly was. I brought up Cuphead, and
I could see that.
I think, like, I swear, like, this is a very successful game, but if you just slapped a Nintendo logo on it, I think it would sell millions. Um, just for like millions more, just for having that Nintendo brand next to it, because it very much um has the quality of a Nintendo game. And I've heard debates online of like, well, Nintendo games aren't difficult anymore. But why not? Like, why couldn't they have a difficult platforming game?
Well, they do. They've got 2 at least on Switch, but we'll get to them.
Ah, the main as a main IP. Um, do you have let's see, a favorite difficult older game? Older game on Switch. Hmm.
Probably my favorite difficult game, and I will never beat it, and part of it is because it's not the best re-release of it, but Zombies Ate My Neighbors is hard, man. I can get to, like, level 26 consistently, but man, that is a hard game, and it taunts me. It's taunted me since I was a kid, and I know I will never, ever beat it. I will keep trying, but it's never gonna happen. But that's one where I feel like they botched the re-release because there's no save states. You can save at the end of a level, but that's it. And I was like, "Ugh, why didn't you guys do save states? I'd have some shot in, actually completing this." So, that's probably the most challenging old game that's on there that I really enjoy.
And you've never completed it.
No.
Never completed it. Well, for me, I put on here. I put Lion King, and I did have to search up. First of all, I thought it was on NSO, and it's not. And then I thought it was on the Genesis Collection, and it's not. And then I thought, well, I know it's on Switch. It's on the Disney Collection with
Yeah.
With Aladdin, I think.
Aladdin and Jungle Book, which kinda weird they had '90s Jungle Book games, but so Lion King, I remember playing on Genesis, and that monkey level, that
Yep.
that was it. I'm done. I don't need to play this anymore. So that's a collection. My wife has the collection. I haven't really played around with it. I don't know if I have it in me to play through Lion King.
I have no interest in going back. Like if it was added to the service, I guess I would try it again. I have no interest in trying to complete it. It might have been for you too, but it was a pack-in game for the Genesis when I got it. So it was like the
Oh,
only
I didn't
game.
know that.
It was the only. Yeah, it's kind of weird. Kind of weird to think about
So
it.
it's the only non-Sega game that was a pack-in?
Yeah, yeah. So it was the only game I had for a long time,
Oh
and
boy.
like when I was a kid, because I'm like 4 or 5 years old. I wasn't like going over like friends' houses or anything. There was a long time where one I thought I was just bad at games, and two I thought no one actually completed these games because who actually plays 8 hours of Super Mario Brothers 3 with no save
Yeah,
states, you know? So for a
right.
long time, I thought no one actually reaches the ends of these games.
That's
And
fair.
Lion King, like, yeah, I mean, I just thought like, okay, like this is a normal game that people play, and like I just can't do it. And then I grew up, and I'm like, no, that is like the Souls like of platforming games. I'm like, oh, okay,
Yeah,
this.
yeah, so, I mean, by the time I was playing that, I probably had beaten at least one of the Super Star Wars games on SNES, like so I was a little familiar with the challenge, but that game was just like brutal.
Yeah. Yeah, so it wasn't me. It wasn't me. I mean, I will say that I think I'm just like decent middle of the road because we live in a time where we can watch the best people play these games. So
Yeah.
clearly we're on a spectrum, and most of us are somewhere in the middle. Have you ever finished Blasphemous? Have you ever?
No, I have to beat Blasphemous and the DLC for it, and then I need to play Blasphemous 2 and the DLC before the Ninja Gaiden game comes out. I forget where I get stuck in Blasphemous. Like I really like it. Like I love the aesthetic in that. I love that they use like the religious iconography, however you say that word. Um, and that it sort of has a Souls vibe, but it's almost darker. Like I wouldn't want to visit that place at all. It's fun to play around in it, but I'm like, oh my god, if you were actually trapped here, this would be awful. Like it's just they like took misery and made a game out of it. Like, here you go. You want to just feel uncomfortable and like unclean, and yeah, there you go. Enjoy. But I definitely want to beat them. I like them, and they have pretty impressive art style for what they went for. Because that so easily could have just been a 3D game with a dark, gothic thing going for it, and the fact that they went with that retro style, I think adds a lot to it.
It worked.
Have you beaten Blasphemous?
No, no,
No.
it's just one of those games. I think 2025 needs to be that year. It's not a very long game, but it might be a long
It's
game.
just challenging.
It might be long for me. Um, but I mean, I would put it up there for like favorite like modern retro art style. I mean, clearly it worked because it impressed the developers enough for them to make the new Ninja Gaiden. So
Yeah.
so so clearly, I mean, I can't imagine what that phone call was like. What that must have been like. Like who reached out to who first? Like, was it developers? Was it? But whatever. So I think yeah. Go since I have it. I need to beat Blasphemous and DLC, and then I'm sure I want to do Blasphemous 2. Um, it's funny to think about again on Nintendo Therapy. We talked about Nintendo not wanting blood in their games for a long
Yeah.
time, and
Yeah.
this game is all about blood. Like he pours like vats of blood like into his helmet, and
Yeah.
or like decapitations and splitting people in half. I just enjoy it. Like I
Oh,
just
it's a pretty brutal game, and
yeah,
that's the thing. I'm happy on Switch that Nintendo was just finally like, look, people of all ages play games, so fine, you guys can have all this crazy stuff.
yeah. I think there's still a line somewhere I can't figure out what it is because they are allowing Grand Theft Auto on there now. But Grand Theft Auto is kind of like
It's
just
old
expected.
Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah, but
Like
it's
old Grand Theft Auto is a little more. Well, I guess they're always been cartoony, but I feel like the more recent one tried a little more to be more real world. So I think maybe that's the line, depending what your game's depicting.
yeah. Well, I'm just like king of a game that has like you can have a game that has drugs, but you might not have a Nintendo game where you're growing drugs, perhaps. Or like you might have a Grand Theft Auto game where you have prostitutes, but you might not have another game where you have the same thing. I don't know. I don't know. It kind of I'm not so sure sometimes of where like I think there are games that Nintendo would not put on their system. But then again, there's a lot of
I'm
like
not sure what they are though, because I mean they have a Witcher 3 port,
yep.
and that's
Wh-
about as adult as you can get.
yeah.
So
Witcher 3 is more adult than Cyberpunk. That's like, how'd that
Yeah,
happen?
yeah. Cyberpunk's a little cartoony too, because I mean they have all the shovelware, hentai, whatever,
Yep.
like every week. So yeah, I don't know what type of game would make them go, "Whoa, no, you can't put that on there."
There's definitely some Steam games, I think,
There
like
has to be something,
th
but
th th
I don't know what it is.
there's definitely Steam games that have certain themes or certain depictions that I think that
Wouldn't fly.
that I would certainly stay away from. But
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, because there's just a lot, like Nintendo has a new hentai game every day. Steam, it's like dozens. So I'm sure there has been times where they've turned games away, and I've always thought Grand Theft Auto was kind of like South Park in a way, where it's like, oh, it's South Park, who cares? You know what it is.
yeah.
You know what Grand Theft Auto is. Like, there's gonna be guns and prostitutes and things. So, um, yeah, yeah.
I
Um,
feel like maybe the line is you can kill Nazis on the Switch, but you can't have like Hitler boyfriend dating sim or something like that.
dude, there are so many Hitler games on Steam. There are so
So
many of
maybe
them.
that's the line.
So there are
So,
so many of them, and as a Jewish person, I have to say, like, it's fine, because I think you should be allowed to make those games and then have society tell you whether or not those games are okay or not.
yeah.
That's the world that I want to live in. Not a world where we say no, you can't make certain games. We just say no, those games are dumb. But yeah, there's a lot of those. Speaking of which, because you're a movie guy, did you see the backlash people had for the Indiana Jones video game? You see that?
No, what are they upset about?
It's just young people that are like, did you see in the Indiana Jones game? There's Nazi insignia. I'm like, yeah. Have you seen the movie? Have you seen the Indiana Jones movie? Because
Have you seen Harrison Ford? He's pretty pro punch Nazis.
exactly. It's like I'm not, and again, as a Jewish person, I don't know if I want Indiana Jones without Nazis, because that might be it might be a little bit boring. It's like, and I thought it was funny that it's like you can you can have those symbols in a game and still say that's bad. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, like the new Wolfenstein, so you can play the second one on Switch. And again, it's not them going, "Oh, look how cool fascism is." It's like, "No, you can go mow all these guys down." We're not saying this is okay. Like I mean, Wolfenstein's become more of a satirized thing, but yeah, it's funny to me what'll set people off now.
yeah, people are just so reactionary, and it's like, if you haven't seen the movie, just look it up. Just look up Indiana Jones Nazis, and then it'll clear things up for you, because like those symbols still exist, and it can still be there. I don't even know who. I haven't seen anyone playing that game yet. Is it good? I don't know.
Uh, that's that's when I'm gonna have to wait till it's on Sony because I don't want to get an Xbox again just to play Indiana Jones. But I've heard all good things, so we'll see.
Nah, everything's an Xbox now. I'm an Xbox. You're an Xbox. That's the new Xbox thing they're trying. Is that everything's gonna be an Xbox now, including Nintendo. I'm pretty sure. Let's do a couple more games and get out of here. Um, I played when I got my Switch OLED. I played Metroid Dread because it launched the same day as a Switch OLED. Took me, I think,
It
about,
did.
yeah, yeah. It,
It
it
was
was
weird that it didn't have an OLED Switch that was Metroid themed.
Yeah, that is
It didn't
weird.
make any sense to me.
That is weird. That is weird. Um, and yeah, that was the first one I played handheld on my Switch OLED, and it was great because it's really easy to see those dark
Oh yeah,
colors um, on that screen. Um, it was a game that I thought would never come. Like I didn't think we were gonna get a 2D Metroid. It plays fantastically. It took me way too long to beat for a short game. It
it took me a
is
while.
it's pretty stressful, I thought. Um,
Yeah,
learning how to parry is very difficult. So the best advice is just not get caught. Just try not to get caught in that whole game. What did you think of Metroid Dread?
I really, really enjoyed Metroid Dread. I still think it's one of the best games on the system. I prefer it over Super Metroid, which I have beaten, but I feel like Super Metroid might be a little too dated control wise now. But I think the thing I like the most is they brought such a horror element to it. So like when those robots show up, you're like really on edge because those things will just pinpoint where you are and go after you. But that's another one where it has a harder difficulty. And I don't know if I want to attempt that because in that game, it's you get hit once and you die. And I can't fathom even attempting the end boss in that game with that as, your thing. Like, that end boss is insane.
Yeah, yeah, I would agree. I think it is up there with best performing Switch games and just one of the best overall. Um, just like complete games. It's pretty short. It's probably anywhere from like 6 to 12 hours. It was definitely more for 12. It was definitely more on the longer side for me. But beginning to end, it's just great. I thought it was a great game to launch alongside the Switch OLED. I wonder if we get another 2D Metroid in the next, I think I'll say 3 years. I wonder if we get another 2D Metroid.
It's possible because it did do well. I know that's not like one of their big franchise sellers, but I think Dread outsold the Prime remaster. And I think for a lot of people, that was their first Metroid game.
Yep.
So I think it's possible to see one sooner than you normally would.
Sold a little over 3 million overall. I think it is the best selling 2D, I believe. And
Okay.
we can assume that Prime 4 is going to just break all of those numbers. So I wonder if Prime 4 just acts like, how Breath of the Wild was for Zelda, where it gets a lot more people interested in that franchise.
Yeah.
And then um, I could definitely see them doing a 2D Metroid again, especially with Prime, hopefully coming out in 2025. Who knows?
Yeah, I think it's definitely conceivable. And Nintendo has been doing a better job, I think, of bringing the spotlight back to their smaller franchises.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. I'm not sure about some IPs like will we see an F-Zero like next generation? Seems like they're kind of flirting with that idea. Um, and no, I was just thinking for a moment about are there any others that I would like to see in the next system? But let's um uh going through Reddit, and we're almost done here. Going through Reddit, apparently, what is that Donkey Kong game that's really difficult that everyone says is the most difficult? Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze. Have you played that one, Tropical Freeze?
So Tropical Freeze is the only game I've over 100%ed because you can go over 100 if you unlock the bonus levels. It's challenging. I would, for the time being, argue Returns is harder because of the motion control thing. But once the HD one comes out, maybe that'll change. But Donkey Kong Country 2 is challenging too. So it's definitely one of like I would say it's one of the hardest Nintendo games, but Dread's probably more difficult if I had to compare.
Yeah, because that was the surprising one where I was looking through everyone saying like Tropical Freeze, Tropical Freeze. I'm like, did everyone play it? That was a Wii U title, wasn't it?
It was a Wii
It
U
was a
game.
Wii, yeah. And I'm like, okay, everyone I guess played this one at least on this Reddit thread. So that was surprising to me. Yeah, are there any let's see, are there any backlog games you have on Switch? Like difficult backlog games? I have
Oh, I
yeah, go ahead.
so one of my favorite things they added was the folder thing. So I have a folder called Souls, and it's everything that's in that genre. So I've probably got 25 games in there I haven't touched, and Nine Souls is one of them. And before we were starting to record, like just today I saw they're getting a physical, and I'm like, well, I would have waited and got it physically, but that's what I'm looking forward to playing. Kill Knight I haven't touched. That's another one that everyone's like, it's really, really hard, and so yeah, I gravitate towards those type of games. How is Nine Souls? Because I know you've played it.
Yeah, I've played on Steam a little bit. It's I'd say it's on par with Hollow Knight difficulty. It has it's a little bit more vibrant than Hollow Knight. Like it's not as like the colors are more vibrant. The characters are a little bit more lighthearted. There's a little bit more fun dialogue in it. The combat might be a little bit more involved because I found out 'cause I'm not that far in the game that there's like four different types of parry moves that you learn throughout the game, and then like you need a certain ability to beat a certain boss. So,
Okay.
to me, it's like Hollow Knight meets Sekiro, which definitely has maybe more of an interesting theme for some people, and I was following the development of it. Um, I don't know what awards it was nominated for. Definitely one of the best indie games of 2024, and clearly a lot of people who are waiting for Hollow Knight Silk Song are just playing this game um, in
Okay.
anticipation. So yeah, difficulty wise, I'm not so sure, but the combat feels great. The port the port for Nintendo looks great from what I've seen. So I think it's worth full price. I think it's worth sale price, of course. Was there anything else I had? Yeah, Blasphemous 2. I want to get to Monster Hunter Rise. I know you play. That's always a game where it's like when I watch videos on it, I'm like, there's just, it seems like there's such a big learning curve for Monster Hunter
No,
Rise. No?
I feel like that may be the easiest one to learn, which is why I get so much flack from like the hardcore community. Like, oh, it's not even as challenging. And but yeah, if you ever want to give it a go, because I have the DLC for that. I've never seen it. It's just we always talk on Nintendo Therapy how the big problem we have now as gamers is there's too much. Like so now you're just trying to get to everything. So, but no, that's a really fun game to play online, and I think it's more just finding the weapon you like, and then once you kind of have that, and you learn the combat with that weapon, everything starts to kind of become natural. So I think it's harder if you played one of the other Monster Hunters, just because it traversal and everything is completely different. But I think if you haven't really dabbled with the series much, it's a perfect starting point.
Well, I might do that because I might want to get into the Monster Hunter series before the new one comes out. whatever
Yeah, that's soon.
whatever that one's called. uh, and so yeah, last part, I guess. Are there any games that you hope come to Switch 2?
I mean, I'd still kind of like to have Dark Souls 2 and 3 on the go. You
Okay.
know, I know they're not going to get the exclusive stuff, and I don't really want Sekiro on the go because it's not going to be too fun to try and navigate. But or even Elden Ring. Elden Ring would be cool on the go. I know I've kind of been on the fence about if I would, buy it again, but maybe, you know.
Yeah, yeah, you might because like you have like I mean you have Sky like when you bought Skyrim, did you buy it when it was on sale for Switch?
Mm, I might have found it on sale because I had it physically. Yeah, so I might have paid like 40 for it or something instead of the 60.
Yeah, yeah. I think I bought it like half off. I think I bought it for 30, or maybe I bought it for like 36 or something. Uh, and then like you have like Kingdom Come Deliverance. You have that multiple times, right?
No, I only have that once and I haven't played it yet, but that was for whatever reason I usually get ports on Switch and Kingdom Come, the guys that did the Witcher port did it. So I was never like, "Oh, this isn't going to run." So, and I know that's considered a challenging game because it's more realistic. And one of the things I like is I've read that the DLC you can't see all in one playthrough because they're based on what you choose to focus on. So I'm like, all right, that gives that some replayability, so that's kind of cool. But like, I know like a Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 isn't going to be on the next Switch system because we're still going to be a generation behind technically. But
Yeah,
the things that anything they've been able to run on a PS4, so Elden Ring, I think you could get that on the next system.
definitely, definitely. I think that's for sure coming. Uh, Difficult games, I don't know. But yeah, I'm hoping that Cyberpunk has a full circle moment on Switch. Um, because if they
That
can
would be
make it,
cool.
if they can make it on the Switch system and just show that like, we went from like this historically bad launch. We didn't give up on the game, and it turned into a decent game with
Yeah.
a very good DLC. And when I say decent, I mean decent running because for me, it's a top 10 all-time game for me. Uh, CD Projekt Red, when it comes to world building, I think is the
Oh,
best.
fantastic.
Is
Yeah,
is
they're really good at it.
Yeah. Just create just uh and that was a super ambitious project. It runs fine now on my PC, my Steam Deck. It is one of the most immersive games that I've played. So hopefully they get their full circle moment and be like, yeah, like we're surviving and we're even surviving into this next generation, I guess we'll call it. Shawn, it has been great. Of course, we've gone way over what I was planning to do, but that's expected.
Yeah, we always do.
Yeah. I hope that you and everyone listening has a great week, a great holiday, a great Christmas if you're celebrating. And Shawn, thank you so much for coming on again today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and, always here if you wanna throw around some hard games.
Definitely have you on again soon, and we'll talk soon. And for everyone else, this is Harrison Talks Pod. I will see you next week.